Okay.
May I ask one more question?
One more question.
This is a general question. How is, can you explain how Medicaid is involved in Obamacare and how that might affect it if Obamacare fails or passes the judicial review and the Supreme Court?
Let me just add for starters, the new healthcare law extends Medicaid up to 133% of the federal poverty level. Right now it's 100%. And so you have a very large increase in the pool of people that qualify. And to do that, obviously, you don't want to have a program riddled with fraud. So, more you would like to get into?
It's an important question because here's what you need to consider. Number one, if the health reform proposal is struck down by the courts, Medicaid doesn't go away. If it's upheld, the program is basically a large-scale expansion of Medicaid. In either event, if Medicaid is vulnerable and susceptible to this kind of massive misappropriation and fraud, it must be addressed, whether the law is stricken or not, because it's got a problem. It's a Swiss cheese program. It is so subject to exploitation and misappropriation that it's mind-boggling.
I can't believe that if this is occurring across states, that there isn't a more timely investigation by the federal government.
Could you clarify that?
An audit, in the federal government do an audit? Why are we doing, why are we recommending a state audit that's delayed? Shouldn't the feds be looking at the administration?
Absolutely, they should. The federal government should be looking at it, and you just identified the core problem. The federal government, until very recently, has assumed that the state and that state officials and functionaries, including the state's consulting actuary, were responsible for auditing and verifying the information. The snippet of the letter I read you from the American Academy of Actuaries, of course, says absolutely not. So what we've discovered just now is no one is doing it, but everyone assumes someone else is doing it. Therefore, we reach this crisis.
But why is there no action at the federal level?
There's
Would the efforts be better directed at the federal level?
Well, based on what happened in Minnesota, absolutely. It's clear that federal action is required at this point, and what we're now looking towards is the federal government proposing and enacting legislation to require these audits, and also to inform CMS that the notion that someone else is looking at this is not true. And that is in fact the problem. And now they're aware of this, but like any problem of this magnitude, we've strayed into too big to fail territory. These are some enormous numbers, and people are having trouble wrapping their heads around the fact that we're talking about this kind of money and these kinds of programs, and no one's paying attention.
And it is a both and, not an either or approach. The federal government does need to tighten up its oversight, and that's what the Bachmann bill is all about, which I anticipate supporting, but it's not yet submitted.
In fact, one of the documents I showed you earlier is this August 2010 report entitled CMS's Oversight of States Rate Setting Needs Improvement. This report addresses exactly the question you just raised. It says because of the stunning lack of oversight, billions of federal dollars are at risk to misappropriation and fraud. But this was only published in 2010, and I'm sure all of you who do business in places like this know the glacial speed at which things move. It's amazing that only 2 years later, we're here talking about this kind of activity. It really has been quite remarkable.
As a practical matter, is it likely, the delay in an audit, is it likely that it takes that much time? I assume that would be a very costly audit. And is it likely that it would take time to put a protocol and cost in place, or what is the delay if you care to offer an opinion?
Like most things in life, I would be delighted to offer an opinion. I'm never too shy about it, so I start now. The cost of the audit appears to be around between $700,000 and $800,000, of which the federal government would pick up half. So that means for $350,000 or $400,000, you could have an accurate and reliable accounting of what's going on with a $4 billion program. Now, even if, as some people say, well, you know, I won't tolerate a single dollar being spent on anything other than direct patient care, number one, you have no idea where these single dollars are being spent right now. And number two, since we've just had $103 million thrown at us, it seems highly likely that we could afford to spend about $700,000 to find out what on earth is going on that these not-for-profit organizations can and would throw this kind of money around to basically divert attention away from the issue. So that's sort of to the cost of the audit thing. As to the difficulty of the audit is actually quite simple. What you're looking at is the other document I showed you that says encounter data isn't used by the state, you don't audit it. You're looking, as you would look at your own household budgets, and taking the receipts for the legitimate services and care that was actually provided and comparing it against the amount of money you're putting into the program, and then asking the question, what happened to the difference? Not even from a critical standpoint, just how much is the difference and where did it go? Then you can make policy decisions about whether you're doing it correctly, because you might well be able to hire a third-party administrator to manage the state's money for 3 or 4%, not 25%.
Well, I'm going to close this with this statement. The attitude of the federal government towards the state in administering Medicaid has been, we trust you to do the right thing. I think we need to overlay upon that the principle of former President Ronald Reagan, who said, trust but verify. And we're here to argue for the verify side of the point. Thank you all for coming. It's a huge issue. It's not going away. We need to solve it. David, thank you.